Welcome to the second assignment for this unit. In this assignment, we are going to be creating something more organic, based on this little ice cream lady. The same warning as in the other tutorial, as we get deeper into tutorials, I will stop calling out the transform tools, since you should know that if I move an object, it's with the move tool, if I scale an object, it's with the scale tool, if I rotate an object, it's with the rotate tool, and if I need to select something, it's with the live selection. Alright, let's jump into it. First, we are going to create the cup where this ice cream will live. So bring in the reference image and increase the transparency so that you can see your spline. As a reminder, go to Mode, View Settings, and the Back tab. Trace around it with your pen tool. First point at 0 and make sure to add an inner spline. However, for this inner spline, we do not need to go all the way down to the bottom. We're going to stop right here and then connect it with a straight line to the bottom. Both of these points should be at 0 so that there's no hole or overlap in geometry. Make sure to fix your points if you need to. Make the spline a child of the lathe and smooth it out if you need to, which I needed to. Now, let's make the beginning of the ice cream by making a part inside of the cup first. We're going to use the already made spline to make this easier for us. Select all of the points from the inner part of your spline and right-click on your viewport. This will open up a menu of options, and we want to look all the way down until we find Split. Split will take these points and create a duplicate spline with only the points that you have selected. So now you have spline and spline point 1, which is the duplicate. Take spline point 1 out of the lathe and name it ice cream. Alright, so automatically the spline became a closed spline, which ultimately is what we want, but we need to be able to decide how it's closing. So check off close spline. And let's hide the lathe in the viewport for now so that we can focus on the ice cream spline. Switching to the front view and using our pen tool, let's close the spline by making a point near the y-axis and connecting it to the bottom. Make it a child of a lathe, and the reason the shading is happening is because my point right here is not at 0 and x, so the geometry is actually crossing itself. So this is the base of our ice cream, but what I want is to create kind of like a comfy bed that will merge with the rest of the ice cream. So first, let's double click on this top point to change it from hard interpolation to soft interpolation and be able to alter the tangents. Let's increase the curvature at the top. Remember, you can hold Shift on your keyboard and this will break your tangent. Next, let's do something similar to this point on the side so that it looks like the ice cream is overflowing a little bit. You might want to bring back your cup so that you can actually see how much is overflowing. I'm right-clicking to give this point soft tangents, which is soft interpolation, and making this curve to overflow the cup. Make sure that the bottom tangent is not making the ice cream come out from the side of the cup. Don't forget to name everything accordingly. That little dent on the inside does not matter too much in this case, since we won't be able to see it once we actually put the ice cream on top, but be aware that that is happening, and if you were going to see it, we would need to fix it. Alright, so now let's make the ice cream. We will do this with a helix and change it to the correct plane, which is XC. So now we're going to make a bunch of edits to this helix. We want first the top to be smaller, so let's change the end radius to make it smaller and the start radius to make it bigger. We want a lot more swirls, so let's increase the end angle. I ended up with 3000, but you can have as many as you want. Now, I want the ice cream to be bottom heavy, so we're going to change the radial bias and the height bias. The radial bias defines the speed of the horizontal growth, while the height bias determines the vertical growth. You can also change the height so that you have a crunched up ice cream. We will need to further edit them later on, so none of these numbers are final. Now let's give this swirl some geometry by getting a contour spline. I will be using the flower and making both of them children of the sweep. So that's a lot of ice cream. We definitely need to make our contours smaller. Play around with how your flower looks until you get something that you are happy with. I ultimately ended up with 25 centimeters for the inner radius and 50 centimeters for the outer radius. Make sure to move and scale your ice cream according to how you want it to look. And then I had to alter the helix a little bit more, mostly rounding out numbers that had gone into decimals when I scaled it down. I am reducing the end scale of the sweep so that not only is the top of the helix smaller, but the geometry of the whole swirl is smaller on the top. Now, a few more adjustments to the helix. This is going to take a bit of playing around with from your part, so make sure to spend time to get something that you're actually happy with. Now let's bring out the star of the show, the volume builder, and bring in our ice cream and our ice cream base to be children of the volume builder. Let's reduce the voxel size because while we want this to be soft, we don't want it to lose all definition. Now let's add a tip to this ice cream. Instead of editing the helix more, let's add a new spline that's just going to be the tip. So, a reminder, deactivate your volume builder so that you can see the geometry in the front view, and with your pen tool, add a little curved tip to this ice cream. Instead of having to figure out a new contour spline, let's just copy the sweep, the one that we made for the ice cream, and replace the helix path with our new tip spline. And now we have similar geometry to the rest of the ice cream without having to do too much work. But of course, we still need to edit it. I brought the scale back to default, which is 100%. I'll change it afterwards again, but this makes it easier to visualize how big the tip is if it's not being affected by the end scale. Now, I can see that the flower contour is too big, so with our scale tool, let's scale it and position the individual points to better connect with our ice cream. We don't need this to be perfect since the volume builder will smooth it all out and connect it. But we do need to get close enough. Now we can change the end scale again because like I said, this is going to be the tip of the swirl, so it should look like one. Let's further adjust this to something that you feel matches your swirl. I can't give you exact numbers because you may have done something different with the helix, you may have done something different with your flower, so just do something that you like and feel like it looks connected enough. Again, it does not have to match exactly how your ice cream is. Alright, now let's name this tip and bring it into the volume builder. To connect those two splines and smooth them out, let's add an SDF smooth filter. And we got some soft serve. Next thing is to add a little bit more irregularity to this ice cream because right now it looks too perfect. So I'm going to take out a flower spline, put it in the correct plane, XZ, and fit it around the bottom of the ice cream. We will alter the way that this flower looks later on, so the numbers don't matter too much right now. Let's use the same time-saving technique as with the tip, which was to copy the ice cream sweep and change the path spline from the helix to, in this case, our flower. So the sweep now has two flowers, a flower path and a flower contour. If you want to change this to naming contour and path, feel free to. I want this flower to look like there's more ice cream weighing down on one side. So I am placing it and scaling it so that it only comes out of one side and only a little bit. This looks okay, but of course we are going to need to edit it more later. For now, however, let's name it and bring it into the volume builder. Just so you know, not everything has to have the perfect name, especially when you are adding bits and pieces, as long as the name is descriptive enough and you can tell what it is later on. If you notice, adding this extra side did not automatically smooth it out. This is because the SDF smooth is underneath the extra side. So make sure to move it to be the upmost layer of the volume builder. Now let's add more irregularity to this ice cream by bending it. Take out a bend deformer and make it big enough to cover the entire ice cream. We want this bend to affect the ice cream sweep, so let's bring it out for a second and into a null. Add the bend deformer to this null because deformers can affect peers when both are children of the same parent. And then let's bring the null back into the volume builder. The null is now our ice cream. We want to bend this ice cream, so we can deactivate the volume builder for now and begin bending. Let's bend opposite to where we're adding the extra side so that all of the irregularity is not happening only on one side. And make sure that your bend has keep y-axis length on because we don't want the bend to change the size of the helix that we worked so hard to perfectly size. I left my bend in -53. Make sure to fix the position of the tip since it got left behind once we bended the ice cream. Once again, make sure that your layers in the volume builder are in the correct position. The SDF smooth should be the top layer. And now reactivate your volume builder. Here, I noticed that on the top of the ice cream, it doesn't connect, so I need to fix my helix. Remember to deactivate your volume builder if your computer is not enjoying the live changes. I also noticed that my tip was positioned wrong, so I need to change the position of that again. Earlier, it was a little annoying to change it because of where the sweep's axis is, since it's not accurate to where the actual geometry is. So if we check on Enable Axis, we can change the axis of the tip sweep until it's near the spline. Turn off your Enable Axis again so that we are no longer moving the axis, and now we can move the tip easier because our axis is right there. Okay, so clearly we need to fix our extra side because right now it is not giving us the illusion that we want. We're going to add a different type of filter to it. First, let's isolate it in the volume builder by taking out a folder and making the extra side a child of this folder. If you click and leave SDF smooth pressed, you have access to a few more filters. We're going to use the SDF close and open. Let's bring it into our folder and make it the top layer of the folder. Remember, when something is in a folder, it is isolated, so the changes we make using the filter will only happen to the extra side sweep. I'm hiding the rest of my ice cream just so that I can show you what the SDF close and open does. You do not have to do this yourself, I just want to give you a visual. The SDF close and open tries to merge or unmerge your voxels based on how close they are to each other. So as you can see, as I am increasing the iterations, which are the amount of times that this is happening, the holes between the flower is closing. The holes that were in between the flowers are closing. I am bringing back my other ice cream part so that I can see how much I need to further edit this extra side. Your extra side might need different edits than mine, so I'm just going to speed through it a bit, but make sure that you spend the time to alter yours until it looks right. Also, make sure to alter the ice cream or the tip if you need to. Once you're happy with it, let's bring this builder into a volume measure and name it ice cream. The next portion is going to be to recreate this little caramel bow. So let's hide our ice cream and cup and bring in this bow image to trace. This bow image is a PNG with a transparent background, which is something that you actually need to specify to Cinema so that you can see it. To do this, in your viewport attributes, you can change your alpha mode to normal, and this will recognize the transparent background. Again, to find the viewport attributes, you should go to Mode, View Settings, and the Back tab. Now, with our pen tool, let's trace this. I am creating a few different splines for different portions because we can't create this out of one spline since there's multiple starts and end. I'm going to speed up through this so that you're not just sitting there watching me make splines. So I have one spline for the center, one for the bow, and one for the strings. Once you are done, bring out a circle as the contour spline, make it smaller using your scale tool, and make these children of a sweep. Because a sweep can only handle one path, yet I personally have 3 different ones, we're going to need to use the connect object to connect these various splines into one. Now our connect object is our path and it encapsulates all 3 splines. I'm inserting this clip right here just to show you that this would not work the same with a null, because while the null does group them, it doesn't connect them. The connect actually connects them into one path and lets the sweep think that it's only going around one path. You might need to fix your splines like I had to fix mine, because regardless of the fact that this is meant to be a caramel bow and it's okay if it's a little bit messy, there is such a thing as just too messy. With your live selection, you can click around until you click one of your spline's points and then you can move. Remember, you need to be in point mode in order to actually find the points of a spline. Let's add beveled edges to this sweep, and if you add quite enough, you should increase the segments so that it's smooth. After I added these, I actually need to further edit the bow. Now let's bring this into a new volume builder and decrease the voxel size to 3 centimeters. We want this to look smooth since it's made out of caramel. So let's add an SDF smooth, and it looks like our bow disappeared. However, what actually happened was that the SDF smooth is smoothing too much. So if you reduce the strength of it, now you get a nice smooth bow. I increased the voxel size a little bit so that this would be a little softer. Add this volume builder to the volume measure to generate the final geometry. You can further adjust this however you want. I know that I spent quite a while playing with this. You can increase or reduce the strength, change how many iterations, change the shape of your circle contour. On mine, I actually really like the bit of connected geometry because it ends up looking like it was really made out of caramel. Let's bring our ice cream back and place our bow on our ice cream. I am doing all of this scaling and moving to the measure object because this encapsulates all other objects so they're all moving at once. To get an even better placement, I want to bring a spherify in to affect the bow. What the spherify is going to do is that the bow is going to try to match the outside of a sphere, and we're going to use this to our advantage so that it tries to match that ice cream. Let's make our bow sweep a child of a null and bring in a spherify. To get this spherify to look right, we are going to need to adjust this for quite a little bit. Once again, your ice cream and your bow will not look exactly like mine, so this will require your own adjustments. Move the bow, move the spherify, rotate the bow, change the spherify's strength, change the circle contour, alter the volume builder smoothness, etc. You can do quite a few things, and once you're happy with yours, we can move on to the next part. Remember to name things that are not yet named and edit things as much as you want to. The best thing about non-destructive modeling is being able to just go back and change things a million times. Hide your current work and let's create a little homemade pirouette. We are going to use primitive splines for this, so take out a cycloid spline and let's alter its attributes. Radius should be small, around 2.5 centimeters. The A radius should be around 15 centimeters. The start angle, I left it at -87 and I didn't change the end angle. However, if you want a different shape, these are your numbers, so feel free to change it to whatever you want. Now, let's bring out a rectangle spline, scale it down with the scale tool. The cycloid is the path, the rectangle is the contour. Put both of these into a sweep. Let's increase the height of our rectangle so that we have a longer stick. And make it a rounded rectangle so that it smooths out the edges. Now, let's slightly increase the end scale of our sweep so that we can get this super cool effect of an irregular homemade stick. Make sure that you name it. Alright, now we just have to use our move tool and our rotate tool to position this on our ice cream. This is looking good. The last thing that we're going to do is add the smiley face to it. We're actually going to add the smiley face out of geometry as opposed to out of a material, which is the way that it is in the file that I showed you. So I have this reference image with a lot of different smiley faces, and you are free to choose whichever one you like. I am going to use the one on the bottom right, so I'm going to center it by using the offset on the viewport attributes. So again, mode, view settings, and back, and change the offset there. The offset is the position of this image in relation to its center and cinema 000. Move this until your smiley's center is around 000. Increase the transparency And let's begin tracing our smiley face. Let's start with the eye. Since we want a semicircle, let's use our pen tool to create a point at the beginning and a point at the end. Align them using your scale tool. So select them both and scale them down in Y. And then, using our spline arc tool, let's create that perfect semicircle by clicking and dragging on the line. Now, using the pen tool, let's add the eyelashes and connect them to that object. So make sure that you have it selected on your Objects Manager. Let's give this some geometry using a sweep and a contour spline. Make sure to scale down your contour circle so that your sweep's geometry matches the eyelash. And move your point so that you can't see this bottom eyelash going past the eye. Now let's add some nice beveled edges to this object and make sure it has some segments to smooth it out. Once again, make sure that your eyelashes are not going through your eye. Alright, now let's make a little blush using a sphere and an FFD. Scale down your sphere and fit it around the blush. And using an FFD, Control A to select all points, use your scale tool to squish it down. You want to do this in both Y and Z. Increase the segments of your sphere if it's looking too jagged and hide your FFD. Next, we're going to make the mouth, which is going to be the exact same thing that we did for the eye. Point at the beginning, point at the end, arc tool, semicircle. I copied the eye sweep and replaced the path with the mouth path and named it accordingly. So now, instead of making the other eye and the other blush, let's put both of them into a symmetry object. The symmetry object only recognizes one object, so we need to group these two together into a null. The shortcut for the null is Alt-G with your object selected. Notice the difference. We don't need to connect them, we just need to group them. Name them accordingly and group this symmetry and the mouth into a null and call it face. Now let's place it on our ice cream. Your face is going to be too small, so let's increase the scale. We're going to do this in the face null by going to our coordinates and increasing the scale to 2 in all directions. This will make the smiley face 2 times bigger. I know that I put 3, but I regretted it soon after and changed it to 2. The last thing that we need to do is to place this face correctly on our cup. First, I am changing the axis of the mouth so that I can rotate it from the right direction using Enable Axis and the Move tool. Make sure to turn off your Enable Axis after you're done using it. And now I am rotating it so that it matches the curvature of the cup. Next, I am going to move and rotate the blush sphere. Make sure that you select the sphere itself. The symmetrical sphere will simply follow. And last, we're going to alter the spline that makes up the eye. So this was going to be a little more tricky because we actually want to select the points and position them so that it matches the curvature of the cup. Move and rotate the points accordingly. Remember, if you make a mistake, Control Z to undo. Again, I will leave it up to you to decide what materials to put on this, and if you want to add extra details, feel free to. You can have different faces, add a little swirl to the pirouette, maybe add a wafer, a drop of ice cream on the floor, whatever you like. This is it for this tutorial. See you next time.